and I'll omit Sandy Ma.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Hawaii State Ethics Commission. Today is February 3rd, 2022, and the time is 9:01. Commissioners, please note your presence at this meeting when I call your name. I'm Commission Chair Melinda Wood. Vice Chair Fong, are you present?
Here.
Okay.
And Happy New Year on Chinese New Year to everybody.
Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Gralty. Commissioner Gralty, are you here? Can you check, Patrick? He was here.
Yeah, I don't see him on the list.
Well, he was there briefly, but then he disappeared. Well, he'll be back. But anyway, Commissioner McCarthy, are you here? And Commissioner Tobias, we understand, is running late, so she will join us when she is able to. I'll also note the presence of staff. We have Executive Director Harris, Associate Director Yoza, Staff Attorneys Knifer, Chang, and Campbell, and Computer Specialist Patrick Louie. For the benefit of any members of the public who may be joining us, if the Commission's video conference connection is lost during the meeting, we will recess the meeting and reconvene after our connection is restored. Please check the Commission's website at www.ethics.hawaii.gov for information about reconnecting to the meeting. If the meeting is continued to a later date or terminated, information about this will be posted on our website. Are there any members of the public joining us who would like to identify themselves at this time? I believe we have a guest.
Good morning, Sandy Ma with Common Cause Hawaii.
Thank you. Anybody else?
If I may, I will have to jump off at 9:30 for Senate Judiciary meeting hearing. I will have someone else covering when I jump off. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so today's agenda items. Commissioner Gralty, are you here now?
I am present.
Okay,
I had
great.
some leaves in front of me because my granddaughter was playing with my computer last night, but we have gotten rid of the leaves.
Okay. Well, so our agenda item for today is the 2022 legislative session and the Commission's input and guidance on legislative matters. So, Executive Director Harris, how would you like us to proceed?
Thank you, Chair. If I may propose, we will break up the different legislative bills into topic, and then sort of at the end of each topic, I will give the staff's recommendation and then pause to see if there's a motion to support that position or to go in a particular direction. It's just a general matter. Many of these bills are bills that we have seen some iteration before, but at the time when we planned this meeting, we weren't sure what bills would come or not. So this is just an opportunity to make sure the Commission and staff are in sync and have an opportunity for the public to opine, on positions. So because all of these bills are ones that we've seen before, this may be, a bit of a quicker meeting. I'm not sure there's as much substantive discussion that's necessary, but still, it's always a good chance to make sure we're aligned. So, Chair, with your permission, do you mind if I go ahead and get started?
Please do.
Okay. So first, just let me note that we did provide the 2021 agenda of this meeting. And, the intent there was to share the bills that were discussed last year. As you know, the legislature meets in a biennium. So any bill introduced last year is still technically alive. It's not, uncommon for those bills to come back and start moving again. But, typically most of the legislative focus will be on the bills introduced this year. Just bills are provided, but since they've already been discussed, we've already established some level of position on it. I'm not sure it's something we need to repeat, just sharing it more for information, or if somebody wants to ask questions about them. So in the agenda, we have tried to break it out into different categories. If you see the blue, it is a hyperlink, so you can click on it and actually see the actual bill language itself, and then there's a short summary for each one within the agenda. The very first set of bills is 2 bills that the Hawaiʻi State Ethics Commission introduced. They're the same topic, which is essentially requiring mandatory education for all state employees. And so it would require for essentially a certain number of listed categories, what we'd probably consider the public financial disclosure group would have to do a live training. And essentially everybody else would have to do either live or the online training. And it requires every 4 years thereafter. Just basically in conversation with legislators, I've signaled that the intent with this is really to try to increase the number of participants going through our online training. We're not necessarily looking at this as a situation where we want to do, at least not at the beginning, lots of enforcement or really try to be hyper aggressive about making sure we have 100% compliance, but it's more of a, if we get 90% or some larger percentage of all employees going through training, that's going to be a net win and a positive. That's really the focus that we're taking on it. We may come back if this thing gets passed to discuss further if we see that we're not getting enough participation, about trying to be a bit more enforcing. I think the primary points of contention will probably be more administrative, sort of how to ensure employees are taking it. In conversations with, for example, HGA representing government employees, their concerns are, for example, that the training happens during work time, which I believe we would support, because again, I don't think we'd want employees having to take the training on their non-work time. But again, I think those will probably be the primary points of contention, is just trying to make sure we administratively, each department agency can administer this appropriately. So with that, again, the staff's recommendation would be to support, obviously. And let me just pause there to see if there's any questions and if there's a motion to support.
Madam Chair, I'm going to get this rolling. I'll make a motion that we support HB 1475.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me for discussion. And the reason why I support it very vehemently is because number one, I don't want to hear state employee says, if I had known, I wouldn't have done it. Secondly, I think it'll cut down on our role in trying to take care of letters of inquiry about whether or not it's good or it's bad, or it's right or it's wrong. And I know it's going to take a little effort on our part for the commissioner and their staff, but I think it's well worth it, because that way at least everybody will know, hopefully, that what they're doing is right or wrong, and at least gives them an idea before they commit something that may be in violation of our ethics code. That's it.
Okay, anybody else want to comment on this?
Chair, if I might ask, the motion is just for HB 1475. SB 2039 is the same bill, just it's the companion introduced in the Senate. I don't know if there would be a room to do a friendly amendment to include SB 2039 in it.
I'll also accept that amendment if it's okay with the second, whoever seconded.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept those 2 bills and a second, so we'll do the roll call vote or the proposed bills. Vice Chair Fong.
Aye.
Commissioner Galti.
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Aye.
And I believe Commissioner Tobias is still out, and so the chair votes aye. Okay, so let us move on to the next item.
Thank you, Chair. So switching categories, and again, let me also just invite, obviously, Sandy, if you want to chime in, or if any of the staff want to chime in. I'd like to flag in particular, Bonita has been very helpful in going through some of these bills and looking at them, so they may have some input too. So I just want to make sure that the floor is open to them. On the gifts and gifts reporting, HB 1871 and SB 2714 appear to be substantially similar bills. They appear to be a reaction, and again, I think we've discussed some of this last year. It seems to be a reaction to the change to the administrative rules. And so this bill explicitly says things like bentos and manapua, and it sort of actually expressly names out a number of different items can all be given freely and does not make any distinction between lobbyists or others, essentially who the gift's coming from. It's just per se blanket exempting those items. I don't know if I need to belabor this too much. Obviously, you've spent a great deal of time talking about this topic. Later in the agenda, I'd like to talk about trying to issue some guidance to try to make some of the gray in the gifts law a bit more black and white for legislators, because I think that is a part of the contention, is that they just, there's too much uncertainty from their point of view. And I think by issuing some guidance, it may sort of help tamp down some of this push, or at least also sort of give us, a opportunity to continue to work and improve. I think that, we will always have to kind of keep working and trying to improve the clarity without necessarily losing some of the position that we've taken. So let me pause there.
I have a question, Robert. I think the bone of contention is, all right, there's a certain limit that above which you have to report. But I think a lot of the legislators that I know says, well, what do I do? Go and find out if this box of candy is worth more than $25 or something like that. And somebody just gave me a lei. Now, if you want a good lei, nowadays it's more than $25. I can tell you right now. So what do? How can we guide them or give them some kind of guidance in regards to what they can accept? I mean, if they're going to get installed, or I guess during whatever function it is, and somebody gives them a Christina lei, I'll tell you right now, it's over $25.
Sure. So, so the rules were changed specifically. And so there's some specific language, which, for example, would sort of make gifts from lobbyists, essentially per se prohibited, except for a couple of narrow exceptions, which includes a gift of a lei. And again, there is not necessarily a dollar amount attached to what the lei value is, but it can't be a money lei, for example. So, that is one exception for essentially everyone. There's another exception for branded items like a company calendar, something that essentially has no real resale value. And those are some exceptions that apply to lobbyists. And so, those are two, relatively speaking, easier exceptions to talk about. A tougher exception might be, let's say, a neighbor comes by and drops off homemade banana bread, but then also starts directly asking for some type of official action, like asking that legislator to do something on Red Hill, or, to pick your example. And so we're going to talk a little bit later about maybe trying to issue some guidance to try to make those types of situations a little bit more clear, and try to make it a little bit more FAQ and sort of make it something that's very targeted to legislators specifically, to try to make some of this a little bit more clear. That being said, I think this bill, and the reason why we're concerned about it, is essentially it sort of goes back the old direction of essentially saying anything under value is per se just allowed. And you have a situation where you may have essentially like a large lobbying firm or a large entity, spending thousands of dollars buying $25 gifts for everybody on a regular basis. And that's the type of thing I think the rules were intended to try to start tamping down on. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps. Robert and others, we're obviously not going to be able to cover every possible eventuality that might come along with respect to the type of gifts, but guidance that you just referred to would certainly be helpful. Last week, I audited the training that Key and Bonita gave on general ethics on the area of gifts and gift reporting. I thought it was quite excellent. We might, in submitting our support or non-support, might have a little commentary after the bill to say, here are some examples, or here are some further guidelines that might help people. But I think they have to be relatively general in nature, because we'll get into that situation that Wes just referred to, where you've got this situation and that situation, and does this cover this? So something along that line, I think, might be helpful to sort of underscore our support and with some written commentary.
Well, and I think also at the same time, it's important that we let legislators and state employees at all levels know that we assume that they are, semi-intelligent, semi-thoughtful people like the rest of us, and that everybody has to make a judgment call now and then. And if they're uncertain about their judgment call, they should always call the Ethics Commission office and ask. Because my concern is, if we get too detailed about this, there will be some people who might say, well, I'm a smart enough human being to know how to figure this out for myself. So we have to I think we need to walk a line of not insulting people's intelligence, but also giving them the right amount of guidance so that they can make the informed decision for themselves. So that just, I think complicates the sensitivity with which this matter needs to be handled.
Robert, you recommend we approve this?
So to be clear, we'd recommend opposing HB 1871 and SB 2714. We can go to lengths to kind of create, maybe if I can summarize, I think 1871 and 2714, if from a legislator's point of view, it does make it a lot more black and white. Anything, below a certain dollar value you're allowed to take. And the other black and white extreme of that would be is no gifts are allowed whatsoever, right? Those are very clear, easy to apply, and no discretion given. I think the administrative rules attempted to give some level of discretion so that you could really sort of look at the different factors. I think the challenge with them is, from a legislative point of view, that they may have too much discretion. And I think it may be beholden on us to try to provide more guidance, to try to make, let's just say 100% of every situation, say 80% of them are relatively black and white and easy to apply, and the remaining 20% where there's some level of discretion, they can intelligently look at the rules and analyze them, or they can call us and ask for advice. And I think that's sort of what we'd strive for. Whereas maybe right now there's not enough of those black and white situations. It makes it a little bit more challenging, and that feedback is being voiced loud and clear. So again, my recommendation is oppose essentially the attempt to go back to sort of anything below a certain value, and all these lunches and everything else can be free. It can be given freely, and to oppose that effort. But also at the same time, sort of assure legislature will be working on continued guidance and try to make it a little bit more clear for them.
So again, you would oppose Senate Bill recommend opposing Senate Bill 2714
and HB 1871. Both bills are the same.
We already made a motion, and we already went through approving SB 1871 under your recommendation. So would we be consistent in approving 2714 Senate bill?
No, apologize, Commissioner. We approved the prior set of bills before, 1475 and 2039. So now we're on a new set of bills, and so I'm recommending HB 1871.
Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped. Yeah, okay, got it. So
recommending we oppose. So on B1 and B2, essentially, that the Ethics Commission would oppose both bills.
Robert, perhaps I'm a little dense this morning, but could you be a little bit more explicit on the the basis for which we're opposing these two bills.
Sure. So I think the statutory law essentially indicates that any gift that could be reasonably inferred to try to influence an employee in their official action.
Yeah.
And so, we passed administrative rules, which essentially said that somebody who's directly asking for, specifically affected by official action can't give to legislator. So a lobbyist, for example, that's lobbying for a bill, can't be giving gifts except for a few narrow exceptions. 1871 and 2714 would remove that and essentially say those lobbyists can freely give gifts as long as they're under $25 of bentos, et cetera. And so I think that would be backsliding in a direction to sort of more gifts, whereas I think the direction of the rules has been to try to tamp down on some of that.
In our opposition to this, if that's what we vote to do, we'll be issuing some comments to it that sort of just explains, as you did, the basis for the objection and perhaps some suggestion that we think would be necessary or helpful to people to make the this subject matter of gifts and gifts reporting a little bit more clear.
Absolutely. And again, I think that's the opportunity with the new executive directors. You do sort of have an opportunity to say, hey, we're going to take a new look and try to provide some new guidance and try to make, give some time to do that. Okay. I do think we are doing a culture shift, and Commissioner Gralty might be better able to talk to us, but I think there is sort of a shift away from sort of the, every lobbyist was essentially always told to go talk to the legislator, you had to bring a gift. And so I think we're having a culture shift away from that. And this bill sort of responds to that culture shift, right? It's hard to change. But I think that change inherently is a good one, that, we don't necessarily want the richest entities to be able to just buy or have the appearance of being able to buy favor. And that's essentially what our ethics laws are intended to prevent.
Yes.
I'm a little troubled. I think our rules are very, very clear, very strict, but they're not really practical. I think the Hawaii legislators receive lots of gifts of aloha, banana bread, protocol gifts. I don't know about meals, but it seems to me that the $25 threshold makes more sense to me, because $25 these days is minuscule. I mean, it's small. If you were getting a $100 ticket to a football game, that might be different if it came from UH, for example. But a $25 gift, is not in the same category. So my view is maybe the $25 limit does make sense. It's so small as to, it wouldn't impact anybody. If somebody gave me Malapua worth $25 or more, maybe more, even that wouldn't be a problem. But certainly if it was $25 or less, a dozen Malapua, it's not going to affect me. Whether it came from a neighborhood board member in my community or it came from a lobbyist, it's such a small gift. So my view is really that the $25 threshold makes sense. And if it's more than $25, then we have to look and see who's giving it and why it's a larger than usual amount. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it just seems to me that to oppose this means we will go back to the original rules, which are to me overly draconian. Whereas the $25 threshold does give that leeway, or the judgment call can be made. So I don't know if I would oppose this. It seems to me it's an attempt to try to find a way to allow certain kinds of gifts below a certain amount, blanket, without a lot of discussion. And anything over that requires knowing the whys and the wherefores.
If I may, just
Yes.
want to piggyback off of Commissioner Galti's comments. I think we recognize the tension of the situation with the practicalities, right, in terms of what legislators face in the on the ground, right. The concerns, though, with the measure as drafted is that it creates an exception not only for legislators, but also the way it's drafted would also apply to all state employees. So like say a contract manager getting a gift of aloha from a vendor, right? So it kind of, it takes a more sledgehammer approach to what may be more appropriately a scalpel that could be dealt with in, say, if the commission were to entertain rules to adjust some of the rules or guidance or however to kind of more address the issue more narrowly so that it doesn't create bigger problems, I guess, is what I wanted to kind of just note for the way the bills are drafted.
Yeah, let me piggyback on that, because again, like our concern would be like a state health inspector or something getting a gift of aloha from every inspection that they do, for example. And so the rules currently say someone who directly, significantly is impacted by the official action. So again, I think that's why really focusing on lobbyists in the legislator context is it's somebody who's directly asking for something, is going to get money from it potentially as a paid lobbyist, and is giving a gift, and that the appearance from a public perspective is inappropriate. I think we're very clear that if it is a neighbor giving banana bread, that's not something we are regulating or would want to necessarily get regulated. And that's partially why we started the process of trying to issue like a quick guide for legislators to try to make that situation more clear. The thing that gets a little nuanced is what if that neighbor or neighborhood board member then is also immediately lobbying on a bill, like sort of, what line do you start drawing in? So I think we are trying to make it a little bit more carefully crafted. And so I think the language we're currently talking about, again, this is an agenda item later down, was something that directly benefits that individual. So if they're giving banana bread and sort of talking about something of general public import, general public, so again, something that sort of impacts everybody, that we wouldn't necessarily consider that a prohibition. But if something where they're asking for a grant or a spur or something that would directly benefit them, that's where we'd sort of say no, right? So we're trying to draw some lines here. The other examples within the rules are somebody who's like in a contested case hearing can't give a gift to that individual is regulating them, et cetera. So we're trying to draw some lines there. But I certainly hear and understand and appreciate that we have to be pragmatic. We can't sort of create rules that are too hard to either follow or enforce. And certainly would appreciate those comments. I see Sandy raising her hand.
I just don't think a gift of whatever, banana bread less than $25 is going to influence me, even if it came from someone who was trying to get a law change, for example. It's just so small. Now, if it was $2,000, might be different. So I understand the dilemma we face. Yeah. We're trying to balance so many interests, and the language is very difficult to arrive at because these are circumstantial, situational.
Sure. I mean, like the example we just had a week ago was, for example, the county of Maui sent over boxes of cookies for every legislator. We assume each box of cookie is $10 times 75 plus mailing, approximately $1,000 spent in sending these cookies over. And, that's just, that's one example, right? And so, is the public interpreting the law? Is the public going to say that that's reasonably designed to try to affect official action? Plainly counties do get money from legislature. It's just, that's a real life situation that we're dealing with right now. And this law would essentially say that that's fully allowed and wouldn't be reported either. We would never really see it.
And now Sandy did have a comment. Is that correct? Oh, maybe she just left the.
Yeah, I don't see her in the room anymore.
She mentioned she had a hearing.
Yeah,
So she was gonna
exactly.
have a assistant cover or jump into the meeting, but
Right,
I'm not sure if
right.
they're able to sign in or switch off.
Okay, so no comment there. Um,
I also see that we have Commissioner Tobias here, just for the record.
oh, okay. Thank you, Commissioner Bias, for hurrying to get in here. We appreciate it. I think this is a really sticky issue. I think we've confronted it on both sides. You know, at what point does it become so manini that it's insulting to people? And yet, I mean, because I think of some of the more egregious cases, like, you know, teachers rounding up a group of students to go to Washington, D.C. so the teacher can get a free trip to D.C. That's sort of egregious to me. And, you know, that's what we're trying to wrestle with here. And I don't know that if we put a dollar amount on it, then people who get brought in with, you know, somebody complains about, oh, well, I saw my, you know, my school teacher, my boss, you know, a lower level employee. So I saw my boss get a nice gift from such and such company. And then the boss says, well, but it was only $25. And there's no, you know, then we get down to nitpicking with people. And I think that's kind of the problem with the bill, if I'm understanding it correctly, that putting a specific amount on it opens another door to complaining about the rules. Whereas if there's no limit and we expect people to use good judgment, then they say, well, I don't know what good judgment is. And this could be like a, you know, a mid-level administrator in a department. And so I understand why opposing it makes some sense. Because, you know, because of the sort of gotcha principle that some people will try and play on that.
So maybe to if I may suggest as a compromise or a way to move forward, I think I've expressed that I think we need to look at the guidance and we need to look at potentially revising the rules to try to make some of the situations more clear. That, you know, there's probably too much ambiguity as of now. And I think, you know, and again, just this is for discussion and see what the commissioners think. If we were to make a pledge that we'll be looking at in the short term, issuing guidance to help make situations more clear, like the example of a neighbor dropping off banana bread, and also taking the next year, essentially it's the next legislative session, to look at the administrative rules to see if there's ways we can make improvements. And then essentially just basically opposing, saying that we would like to take more time with this process. You know, obviously I prefer the Ethics Commission to have a little bit more control over this versus having this put in statute and then sort of we're now stuck in an inflexible situation. And the easy example is like health inspector kind of example, where if this becomes law, then, you know, we would be essentially having to say, yeah, it's okay for people being inspected to give gifts, right? So I would suggest opposing, but basically saying, because we want to take more time to try to look at the situation and issue more clarity.
I don't, Rob, I'm just concerned that that's ideal from our perspective. But the legislature is eager to act because they want this thing resolved and put to bed. And I was just thinking, is there any legislature or any state that has a problem with gifts of aloha? And I'm not aware of any other state that has such aloha giving during legislative session or any other time of year for those who are not legislators. It's just part of the culture to me. And I think that's why there was such a squawk about it, because we've taken out things that people normally do. It's not that they want to really influence you. They just want to show appreciation for considering the matter, being open to their suggestions. So I think between the two, between leaving it vague and saying we're going to think about, and I don't know if we're capable of coming up with anything better than we got today. Between studying some more and coming up with a decision that is the best that we know under the circumstances, I would rather go with the best that we know under the circumstances, which is to put a dollar amount, and it'll be the end of it from everyone's perspective.
Ray, do you propose that we support these two bills?
Being
a
you know,
legislator,
as the
former
chair of the
legislator.
commission that came up with the rule that is now deemed draconian, I will say yes. I've kind of come around to thinking we need to be able to take the cultural atmosphere in which decision-making is held, as long as it doesn't go overboard. We're not talking about getting Super Bowl tickets, although some legislators in the past did receive Super Bowl tickets. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a small gesture of appreciation.
Ray, if you make the motion, I will second it so we can put this to bed one way or another. How's that?
Wait, I want to interject. We are not talking about just legislators. We're
Yes.
talking about all state employees. So I think there's a difference. People do curry favor with legislators, but this law applies to all state employees, and that makes a difference. I mean,
well, I think if you went to the, go ahead. I'm sorry.
we came up, this commission proposed, well, the staff opposed or suggested opposing this bill because it backs us into a $25 corner. Whereas our whole approach has been to teach people and to enable people to make more nuanced judgments for themselves rather than us being the bad guy that drops the hammer on people. And so, I mean, hearing Rob's commentary on it, I'm inclined to say maybe the bill is too concrete, and maybe we will come up with an alternative that will still allow for tokens of aloha, but without setting a dollar amount on it.
I just
Madam
don't
Chair,
know.
let me bring this to
Wait.
a head. We'll be here forever. Since, we do not have a motion one way or the other, then I'll call for the orders of the day that we move on and that we're not going to take any action. Either that or we have a motion and we vote yay or nay.
I'd like to hear from the staff on that point. I think that's a good point.
We certainly will. I mean, obviously, whatever the commission desires to do, we're going to follow. One comment on this bill is it does not have a dollar amount. It's a blank. And my presumption is the legislature will not fill in that blank until the very last second because they don't want to be attacked in the media for pushing a certain dollar amount. And I think it'd be difficult to support something that's a blank on the gift amount. My suggestion would be, if this is the point of middle ground, is that we will continue to work on it and try to resolve the concerns we've heard from the legislature. One question was asked before is what do other states do? I'm fairly certain, for example, and I will ask Susan to jump in. Like California, for example, prohibits any gift from lobbyists. So I mean, there's plenty of other examples we can point to that are pretty normal.
We're probably the only state in the nation that's troubled by gifts of aloha because we're the only ones that really practice the giving of gifts for aloha purposes.
Yeah, but Commissioner, respectfully, I mean, like state librarians and most other state employees don't gift these gifts. And again, if it's a situation where like a neighbor brings a bag of mangoes and then you give them lemons later, there's no expectation of reciprocity. I mean, the idea is it's a gift, it's aloha. Whereas, if you look at the top 10 largest spenders from a lobbyist perspective, largest entities, all of them are reporting zero in gifts. Nobody's reporting gifts because they're all falling under this rule of giving under $25 and they give frequently. So, there is some level of concern that, if somebody can go in and do this all the time under $25, is that really sort of what we would expect the normal practice to be a gift of aloha?
Do we have the option of simply not acting on this?
Can we can we do, is it possible, I don't, in terms of the parliamentary procedure, maybe Wes or Ray or Robert would know, but can we table this for a little further review by staff and maybe a written submission of some of the concerns, pro and con, and at our next meeting, take it up again for either support or opposition?
I'll
Well-
second that motion.
It wasn't a motion.
Well, I think he was going to make a
I think-
motion, right, Harry?
I think I did. Maybe I didn't use the word motion, but that's what I would do. I would move to table this matter for further review and for review at our next regularly scheduled meeting for either support or opposition.
I second it.
My question before you get to, and I know she didn't call for the question, but my question is, if you have any kind of thing that would suggest to anyone that there is not a quid pro quo necessarily, but there is a favor that's being granted because somebody was very nice to you and continued to give you gifts over time, then what does that do to the credibility of us saying that we do not basically bribe legislators or people that we work with in terms of state employees? Because that's where I'm having the difficulty, not so much with the legislature and the people that are in positions of real power, but I'm talking about the inspector that goes out and inspects something, or someone that comes in and says, okay, I need to verify this, and then you give them a gift. Well, people are really, I think they really appreciate gifts and will look favorably upon things. And so how are you influencing them by giving them banana bread? How are you influencing them by giving them a bag of mangoes? And, yes, it's a small amount. Yes, you want to put a dollar figure on it, but if it's not there, and trying to be culturally sensitive, if it's not there, then it's not an issue.
An alternative, go ahead, Bev, I'm sorry.
I know I beat this dead horse to death coming in late, but I really see, kind of pulling apart and letting it just not be something that people can say, as Melinda said, a gotcha situation. And we can debate, and we'll have this discussion again next meeting. And will we have changed our mind? Will we have garnered information to say, okay, I need to make a separate and different decision?
I think the better way to proceed, I agree with the sentiment of the group that this is something that we cannot decide right now. But I think once the legislature makes a move, at that point, we need to take a position. So they may not take a position. They may let sleeping dogs lie. Or they may come up with a number that says $50, whatever, and then we'll have to react to it. And that may be the best we can do under the circumstance. But to tell them from the outset, we're going to discuss this, we're going to talk. It sounds like Eileen Anderson all over again, who was mayor and was defeated because all she ever did was study. And by the way, she just passed away.
Madam Chair, may I call for the question?
Yeah.
So the motion is we don't do anything until next meeting? Is that the motion?
The motion is that we table this particular item on the agenda for further review and reporting out until our next regularly scheduled meeting, when it'll be before us to either support or oppose.
And there can be some research about other states and whatnot going on before then. We can gather
Right.
more information before then.
Can I just ask a question though, is what would you like us to do in the event the bill is scheduled for a hearing?
I think we should call an emergency meeting.
Yeah, we'll have to meet emergency.
You're still gonna have to comply with sunshine law requirements, which means 6 weeks notice.
I think there is a provision for emergency, but even then, I think it'd be difficult to do logistically
I
because
think
usually
so.
it's a 2-day notice for the hearings. So it would be difficult to do. one option, just pertaining to options, is you can delegate what to do to, one member or to individuals on what to do in the event. So you can actually delegate that authority, and that is allowed under the sunshine. Or, again, we can simply just not comment, just let the bill be heard. It's another option. And a third one is to essentially just submit comments, which is, we're looking at it, but that doesn't really comport with tabling this.
I'm just worried that if we delay it to the next regularly scheduled meeting, we're going to be right where we start, right where we are now.
Well, then, if that being the case, that we have to worry about maybe being on a table and not having enough time to review it or put input to it, then our motion may be a little, I think, inappropriate. I don't know, Harry, I'll go along with, I seconded your motion. What do you think?
What I kind of envision is maybe for the next meeting, which is only a week or two away, as I believe, that perhaps staff could submit to us specific instances of, or kind of document some ideas of what are the factors in favor of support, what are the factors in favor of opposition in writing, and give a few examples. I think that might help, at least me, to kind of make this a little bit more concrete and be able to clearly make a vote. Right now, if it's a motion or to support or oppose, I'm not confident in my own mind as to which position is the best to take. So I'd like a little bit more information, I guess, from staff, if they can do it, providing more information, more examples, and leave it up to us next time to make the final decision.
So, Commissioner, respectfully, this is in front of McKelvey's committee, HB 1871, and he's indicated that he's hearing all bills, that he's going to just set them all, and that all 2 scheduled bills are likely to be scheduled for next week. So
Next week.
Essentially, correct. So, and just to be clear, we've already heard 5 bills and submitted testimony of 5 bills already. Just to give me an idea, legislators moving hard and fast. We have our budget hearing this afternoon.
Okay.
So,
all right.
With respect, chances are this bill will be heard next week, before our next meeting.
Well, I think until the commission takes a position, our position is we have no position. And we just let it go. We'll see what happens. It's going to make its way through the other house and so on and so forth. Go in conference. We still got a ways to go.
Harry, we got Madam Chair, we have a motion and a second. You want to vote on it, or does Larry want to withdraw it? And I'll withdraw my second. I'll yield to Harry.
Yeah, I'm not going to withdraw the motion. I move to table the matter for further review until the next regularly scheduled meeting of the commission, where we will vote on it. Yes or no?
And the next meeting will be on the 16th. So that's not quite 2 weeks from today, little under 2 weeks.
But, Rob, if you think that that's, not the legislature could act on this before that, I think that's an important factor. So, you both know the legislature much better than I do, including Wesley and Ray. So I don't know if it's a practical thing to have it at our next meeting, because it may be a moot matter by that time.
So again, just from a process perspective, Commissioner Gralty indicated it's going to have to go through, for example, in the House, 2 different committee hearings, be voted on, then crossed over. So, the legislative session, still runs for a while. It's just the very first hearing, I guess the question would be, would we even show up? Would we be available for questions in case legislators have questions? Or do we just, say we're still forming our opinion on the bill and just leave it at that and not answer anything? One comment I've heard from legislators, they don't think they can pass this bill because they'll be attacked politically for trying to essentially give themselves more gifts without our support. And so, there is, generally some, not taking a position will have some impact because it may move the bill more or may not again. So again, this is the commission's call on how to move forward. And I certainly hear the need for maybe more information how to approach this. And again, it's something for you guys to decide.
Well, the way I look at it, Robert, is that, actually, if we don't take any action now, or we pass this motion, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the day. I mean, look, I'm familiar with legislative process, and so is Ray. And, this is first reading, second reading, they could change their minds. And if they have so much aloha for us and a respect for our opinion, and you tell them that we're still looking at it, because we don't know whether we should oppose it or support it, it'll make a difference to a lot of the legislators, because if they don't, our hammer is going to come down on them.
I think
So I would like to just have this motion voted upon, yes or no, and then we move on. And if this motion doesn't carry, then there's got to be another motion, yay or nay, or we just don't take action. I mean,
I
if
think
not, we're going to be here another hour debating this.
I think almost every state has a gift law, and I think it's incumbent upon us to check and see what other states are doing. And there's nothing wrong with saying it's under review. We're looking at what other states are doing for some guidance. And until such time as we're able to come to a decision, there is no decision. Under review.
Commissioner, if I can add though, again, I think the intent of the compromise was to say that we were looking at that and that we wanted to have the ability to steer this ship going forward, to the extent that we can pass administrative rules to say exactly this bill, but narrowly tailor it to, for example, just legislators if we wanted to. The challenge of this bill is it does tie our hands in the future of really limiting flexibility. And so, I think that the compromise position that it offered earlier, maybe to make it a little bit more clear, if I didn't say it clearly enough, would be, hey, we're taking this, we've heard the concerns about the lack of clarity. We're taking this under advisement, and we're going to take the process to try to go through the administrative rule process and to give us some time to work on that. And so, I mean, that to me still allows you to steer the ship to some extent versus letting the legislature steer it. And again, that is your call. But I'd much rather have the ability to craft this to some extent, to not have it apply, for example, to state health inspectors, not have anything against them, just seemingly that'd be inappropriate, or a contested case hearing, a party before, a hearings officer not giving gifts to the hearings officer, those types of situations, and be able to really nail those with specificity and take the time to do it right.
Robert, can we do this just to
wait.
Madam Chair, please, may I? Because Harry's motion pretty much says, let's wait to the next meeting so we can do a little more research. Maybe you can add on to that motion that if it be that, these bills will be heard before then we can incorporate what Robert just said. In other words, just tell the legislators that, hey, we're still, whatever you said, Robert, and we're still looking at it. That way we can, move on, and we have the best of both worlds. We go ahead and have you folks give us a little more information, and if it comes to pass that we're not going to have enough time, then Robert can say, hey, we're still looking at this. Is that basically what I'm hearing you say, Robert?
Apologize, I muted myself. Again, my recommendation is one of two things. One, submit opposition simply saying we're looking at it. We want to have the flexibility and time to look at it more carefully, or to submit comments and say we're looking at it and we want more time. And I think in most cases, the legislature will probably want to defer to us in that circumstance, as long as they feel like we're genuinely hearing some of the concerns that they're expressing. So those would both be positions, to be clear, not essentially a no position.
So
it would be. Sorry, go ahead, Chair.
You can finish your sentence.
I think in both circumstances, it would be giving us the ability to try to address the concerns and complaints we've heard about the administrative rules.
So there is a motion to table this for now and discuss it at our next meeting on the 16th. Do you think by the 16th there would be more information that we could decide at that time, or would we, could Harry amend his motion to maybe just be, we're gonna table it for now and get back to the legislature and as soon as we have a better position, a clearer position.
I
Well-
apologize. There's somebody I'm admitting that may have been Sandy Ma's replacement. I apologize. I just noticed.
Okay,
Hi, Noah, welcome. Sorry if you've been waiting for a period of time.
Well, to address that, I don't think I'd want to have an open-ended chair. I think I would want to have my motion to table stand as it was, to have a specific date, that is the next regularly scheduled meeting, to address this and to come to a conclusion.
okay. So we have a motion and a second to allow for information gathering and mulling this over individually, and then come back together at our meeting on the 16th and make a decision at that point. I guess we shall do a roll call vote on that. There's no amendments to that. We will discuss this on the 16th. So we'll do the roll call vote on Harry's suggestion. Vice Chair Fong,
Aye.
Commissioner Gralty,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Tobias,
Opposed?
and the chair is going to abstain on this, but that's still three votes to postpone this till the next regularly scheduled meeting. And so staff, if you can spend some time studying this issue in other states, and if all of us can mull this over, and bear in mind that this is not just about legislators. This is about every state employee. And I can think of cases where people have been pressured on various things. So we just need to think about this, and we'll discuss it on the 16th.
May I just make a comment? Sometimes somebody brings up a proposal, as in this case, our ED has brought it up. Then the beginning seems maybe not so clear or helpful, but after discussion, it seems very clear and helpful. So I want to say, I support what Bob is saying. I get it. And hopefully we'll come to a resolution sooner rather than later. Thank you, Bob. Or Rob.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chair.
I just completely agree. I think this is one of the toughest issues that we have to deal with, and you'd think we would have thought about it enough by now, but you always have to bring new eyes to the discussion and look at the people involved. And I hope that it's okay with you that we table this one till the 16th.
I think there's
Again-
a lot of blood on the floor on this particular issue, mainly Ruth's and Dan Gluck's and mine. We'll look for a better day.
Okay, no, appreciate the comments and appreciate that we still have work to do. And plainly, I think everybody agrees on that. I think if the bill comes up, the intent will be is to not submit any testimony, but be available in the hearing. And we can certainly prepare sort of a review analysis of the current bill and an analysis of our current rules. And again, I think the quick guide that we prepared, which we intended to submit to you for review and approval at the next meeting, might also help provide some clarity. And again, the quick guide, guidance has under administrative rules no actual force of law, but it can sort of show how we interpret the rules. The idea is this supposed to be sort of a band-aid interim solution for the near term, while we would take some time to try to get the rules better. and just the rulemaking process takes time.
Madam Chair, may I make a recommendation, and I think I don't think anybody should oppose it, that if we don't have time to go and review it by the next meeting, that we go ahead and tell Robert to go ahead and tell if the legislature should ask, that we're still taking this at our quote unquote advisement and research, that we'll get back to you. Is that basically what you're saying, Robert?
I mean, to the extent that we've tabled it, I wasn't going to submit any testimony on it at all, but simply be there at the hearing available, but we can submit that.
Yeah, I would, if there's any objection, that's what I would do. Because they're gonna ask, what's the position of the Ethics Commission? I pretty put, I'll put money on that. Then you
Yeah,
can
they're also gonna ask when.
Yeah,
When. You may never get there.
yeah, I know that. But if, should it be, unless there's any objection, my recommendation is exactly what Robert suggested, which is a good one. You know, if they should ask, say, we're still taking our advisement and we're doing a review, and we'll get back to you. If it's okay with the rest of the commissioners. If it should come about, if it should come out before the 16th of.
We'll just duck.
Yeah. Anyway, that would be my recommendation.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty.
Appreciate the discussion. I'm going to jump into the other rules or other laws under the gifts and reporting, and hopefully this conversation will be a little bit quicker and easier. So the governor introduced both HB 2069 and HB 3037, which seems to be intended specifically for protocol gifts to the state, under, sort of a deeper look at it. So it's advising agencies what to do with those gifts, how to create a written log, and sort of at some point transfer it to the state archives. I think the only concern would be is that it's not entirely clear. It doesn't create a clear distinction between protocol gifts to an individual and protocol gifts to the state. My recommendation would be is to submit comments, just asking that maybe that become a bit more clear and try to tie it more specifically with our rules, protocol gifts to individuals versus protocol gifts to state. There is one line in there which indicates, anything that's put in the written log is automatically deemed to be a gift to the state. And I think we can simply say we also have rules, sort of dictating what individuals can say, and just try to get a reference to that. So again, recommendation would be to submit comments, just trying to clarify or tighten the distinction between protocol gifts to state and protocol gifts to an individual.
Just one quick comment. Governor Cayetano was gifted with a $500 driver by a Japanese corporation, and he loved the driver. And the question at the end of his term was, does he give it to whoever? Does he give it? There is no law. So he took it and said, well, it's given to me. I'm going to use it. Nobody else is going to use it. So we badly need this law, Rob. So I agree that we need to tighten it up, but we need this law.
Yeah, I think the presumption is the governor gets a lot of protocol gifts. There's probably a lot of uncertainty about what to do with them. So I think this is helpful.
Okay, what's next?
Is there a motion to submit comments? Again, we can go through these pretty quick, but
On the protocol gifts?
yeah,
I'll make
HB 2069 and SB 3037, motion to submit comments.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, we'll call the roll call vote here. Vice Chair Fong,
Aye.
Commissioner Galti,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Tobias. Commissioner Tobias?
She's on mute.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And the chair votes aye.
Thank you. Skipping down to conflicts of interest, three bills that are essentially the same. HB 1786, HB 2159, SB 3127. Generally, it's trying to comport with a federal statute that requires the development of a written code of ethics for these development boards. And again, generally speaking, we propose, or I should say, we've actually already submitted comments because this bill's already come up, where we essentially supported development of ethics and stood by to help or assist. There was one line that was challenging, which was essentially seemed to imply that the governor would be delegated the discretion to determine what was conflict of interest with both the federal and state law. The language comes from the federal law, to be clear, but I think that they've tried to grab it in and include state law. And so we basically submit comments suggesting that be cleaned up, and we have a letter that this is the director of the Department of Labor that introduced it. So we're going to try to work it out with them. Essentially, we don't want to delegate the State Ethics Commission's ability to interpret the state ethics code to the governor. I think there'd be constitutional challenges for that. So again, recognize we've already submitted testimony on this. I'd ask for a motion simply saying is submitting comments supporting the development of a ethics code, willingness to assist, but just clarifying to make sure the State Ethics Commission doesn't give up its designated jurisdiction.
So you want a motion to approve with comments?
Correct.
So move.
Second,
Third,
Okay. We'll do the roll call vote. Vice Chair Fong,
Aye.
Commissioner Gralty,
aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Tobias,
aye.
and the chair votes aye. So go forth on that. So what's
Sure. And again, sorry, this may seem, I probably should just included this in it. May seem a little bit of a ludicrous motion, but HB 1820 creates a Hawaii Gaming Control Commission. Without taking a position on the Gaming Control Commission, it says a code of ethics that's separate from and in addition to any standards of conduct set forth in our chapter, which I think we would support. They can create additional standards of ethics as long as ours remain, and we sort of remain in charge of that. So we'd probably just support that portion of that language or comment saying we'd agree with those comments. So recommendation would be to do a motion to support that language
and
without taking a position on the rest of the bill.
without worrying about that the whole thing is about gaming, which is probably not going to
not our Kuleana.
Okay, so you need a motion to
So moved.
and a second.
Second,
Okay, so we have a motion to just make sure that the Ethics Commission piece is what in there in this bill. Okay. So we'll do the roll call vote. Vice Chair Fong,
Aye.
Commissioner Gralty,
aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Tobias,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So what else you got for us?
So I'm going to break up the financial disclosures into two buckets, if it's okay. HB 1849 was heard already. We did submit opposition to based on past testimony the commission submitted. HB 1849 requires all amounts reported by non-paid volunteer members to be redacted or non-public. So this is the 18 boards and commissions, not all of which have volunteer members, where the intent would be is they'd still indicate financial interest of some kind, et cetera, would still be public. We just wouldn't know the dollar amount. We submitted, and I asked for, motion to support sort of past precedent, basically saying that, we support transparency, et cetera, and, essentially, oppose the bill. Also indicated, maybe it's sort of slightly new, that a part of our language saying that a conflict of interest is based on substantial financial interest, that the dollar amounts essentially helps the public determine whether it's a substantial financial interest or not. So again, the recommendation would be to oppose HB 1849, SB 2123, and with the following rationale and reasons.
Do we have a motion or discussion?
I'll move. Move to
Second.
oppose.
Second.
Okay. We'll call the vote here. So Vice Chair Fong,
Aye.
Commissioner Gralty,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Tobias,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye.
Thank you. And so the next bucket, the remaining bills, SB 2776, HB 1749, HB 1820, generally deal with just sort of who has to file a financial disclosure requirements. We have past precedent on this, and so I'll briefly summarize, but I'd sort of ask for a motion just to submit testimony based on past precedent, which is task forces. Generally speaking, we've amended administrative rules to essentially have very minimal oversight, just basically suggests that that's sufficient. They don't need to actually pass something law specific to that. And then with regards to boards and commissions that have some more actual authority and ability to delegate, essentially submitting testimony saying that they cannot exempt those from the financial disclosure requirement under the Constitution, that all employees, boards, commissions are required to do that. So again, the motion would be is to submit testimony largely in proportion with sort of our past testimony around financial disclosures. I know it's pretty broad, but hopefully it's sufficient.
Not either oppose or support, right? Just submit testimony.
Yeah, not on the overall thrust of the bill, correct? It would just be comments on these narrow portions, correct?
Madam Chair, I move that we submit testimony on SB 2776, HB 1749, and HB 1820. Is that okay, Rob?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
I
Third.
Are people wanting to get finished here?
Okay, I'm not offended.
Let's have the vote here. Vice Chair Fong,
Aye.
Commissioner Gralty,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Tobias,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye.
Chair, moving on to the budget, HB 2500 is set for hearing this afternoon. We've already submitted testimony support. I am going to go on a limb and say I don't think we actually need a motion for that. Just for your information, this budget includes moving our part-time investigator position into a full-time position. It includes funding to update both our mail servers and our file management servers, which are over 10 years old. And sort of in need of replacement. It includes a sort of agreed upon increase in salaries for all staff based on what the legislature is doing for all agencies, and it's based on the collective bargaining agreement. And it includes sort of normal rent increases that would be predicted. So it is 100% of essentially what we asked for is sort of written in for the House side. So obviously we're in support and quite happy with that. So I won't ask for a motion unless anybody wants to raise their hand and say we should do a motion.
You don't want to make, you don't need a motion?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say we can support our own administrative bill for administrative purposes. Unless somebody wants to talk about it, we've already submitted the testimony.
I have one question. I don't know. I'm a little naive in this because this is the first time I think we've had, well, maybe it's been before, commissioners on the outer islands, and if we go back in person, is there airfare and lodging covered? Just a question.
Sure, we have included in our budget. So we went back to essentially our 2020 budget, and so we've included airfare, which was in our 2020 budget. That's essentially what they started as the base budget. So yes, there is money there for travel for neighbor island commissioners should we start having in-person meetings this year.
Or vice versa, we can have a meeting over in Kauai.
Sure.
With the Pauhana drinks.
Yes.
We'll get the chickens ready for you.
I think we might have to put the bill out of our own pockets for that.
Oh, my.
Harry, I can't accept that. That may be over $25 if it's a specific chicken.
Well,
Commissioner, I think that's been tabled. Literally.
it'll be a
Okay.
small chicken, Wes. Okay,
Yeah.
All right.
So moving into the other bills, and so I'm probably gonna have to go through these one by one because they're all sort of different. I apologize, but maybe we can just do instead of doing a roll call vote, just ask, ayes and nays. And, if we need to do a roll call at that point, we can. SB 2138 adds intern into the definition of employee for purposes of being regulated by the ethics code. And I think this is something that we would support. I suspect there may be some unintended consequences from it, but I think in generality, I think it's something we should support.
Does anybody oppose that?
Nope.
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 No.
Interns should be protected like everybody else, so.
They should suffer
Well-
like everybody else.
Galti might be more at the heart of it. HB 1933 establishes a conflict of interest requirement for non-state employees working with children. This bill is unusual. Again, it's scheduled for a hearing, and we did go ahead and submit comments already. Just very narrowly, the bill is not the most transparent of bills, but it does talk about former employees of the state contracting with the state. And so we submitted comments simply just noting that there are already post-employment laws and that there should be some call out that this isn't replacing the existing post-employment laws. Probably it asked for a motion, essentially just, again, submitting comments, just recognizing that they're not trying to, submitting comments, recognizing the existing post-employment laws for people contracting with the state.
Any disagreement?
No.
No.
It's a very peculiar bill, isn't it?
It was a tough one to read. SB 2405 prohibits state agency departments from barring employees from holding elected public office per se, but rather must conduct a case-by-case analysis. So I think, again, this is a little bit of guesswork and gossip, and I invite Susan or Benita to jump in if they know more. I think this is specific to UH, potentially people wanting to run for office, and there is a per se prohibition or holding an office with state and also running. They're basically asking that it should be done on a case-by-case basis. Again, I would almost recommend we just observe this one for now. Obviously, like for example, it would impact, ethic commission staff and a number of others, right? And so I think it's probably one to observe for now. I'm not sure if we'd take a strong position, but let me pause and see if Susan or Benita have any thoughts or comments.
There's a provision in the Constitution that the AG would be called upon to opine on. We've gotten questions from legislators about holding dual state employment, but we've also had questions from UH and I think DOE employees who were interested in running for office. And I guess there may be a policy in the departments that prohibits them from doing so. And because it's the election year, this is probably what's, underlying it, is what I'm speculating.
This is, may I just say, go ahead, you first, Wes.
Go ahead. Oh,
I was just going to say the current law is that you can be, what's the right word? Excused from government service for 2 years, or you lose your position. What this says is that you can now give up your position with, let's say, the DOE forever. You don't have to go back. I know Josh Agsalu, when he was in the DOE, he was a principal. He had to make a decision at the end of the second year. Was he going to give up his principalship? So I think this is sort of dangerous. I don't want forever and ever. Maybe 2 years is okay, but forever and ever? I don't know. But the position that we're going to take is opposed. Did I hear you correctly, Rob?
No, I was simply, so again, I didn't necessarily read it the same way, Commissioner. Again, I think it would sort of like UH cannot have a per se policy that you cannot run for office and work for the University of Hawaii. And essentially the law, this bill, the way I read it, would be UH can't have that type of broad policy, but they'd have to do it on a case-by-case basis. So each individual employee would have the ability to say, can I run for office or not? And they'd have to do an analysis of whether or not, somehow there'd be a conflict there. On a case-by-case basis rather than a per se prohibition.
It's just that when you say case by case, that's almost automatic approval. And in a way.
Yeah,
But
and
anyway,
again,
we'll wait and see what happens.
that was sort of my thought, is sort of see what the testimony is and sort of see if there's something that maybe more directly impacts us.
Rob, can you maybe educate me? I didn't quite maybe understand this bill. If I was let's say it, I work for the Attorney General's office and I want to run for office. My understanding is that I have to take leave of absence or something like that to run for office. And if I get elected, that means I can't go back to the Attorney General's office. Is that what it's saying?
I don't know if it impacts the leave of absence. That might be rules that are in place existing, and I'm not sure if this directly addresses that. I think it's addressing if the Attorney General's office were to have a per se prohibition against you running for office and saying you just can't. You have to leave for, whether it's you have to take a leave of absence or you just can't. They couldn't have that as a per se prohibition. They'd have to look at whether or not your individual position, whether you're a janitor or an attorney general, whether or not somehow there'd be the creation of conflict, and they create a test, or they create a very loose test, to be clear, about whether or not that you should be prohibited from running for office, and they apply that on a case by case basis.
That wouldn't prohibit me from running for office. I may have to make a decision whether or not to take leave of absence if I could, or just quit.
Correct.
Is that right?
Well, on a case by case basis, right? So they could theoretically, Commissioner Galti may be right. Maybe they'd always say yes, but it may be a situation that come back and no, and then you'd have to decide
So
what to do
basically, it's leaving it up to the various departments.
to apply this test. Correct.
I don't know that. So what would you suggest? I don't know that we would take
I'm
position.
I'm bringing this more to the extent that if the commissioners felt strongly about this or had input that we didn't know about, but I think currently we'd simply observe for now. So unless there's any, go ahead, Susan. Sorry.
There are laws. We have one in Chapter 84, which specifically prohibit certain state employees and also our commissioners from engaging in campaign activities. And there's a provision in our law which specifically prohibits our commissioners from holding other public office. And other agencies have these laws. Campaign Spending Commission, I believe, has it. Elections Commission has it. So I'm not sure how this bill would interact with those other laws as well.
So maybe we should just keep an eye on it and see what happens.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Last one. And since I'm not asking for action, unless somebody feels strongly and wants to make a motion, I think we just move forward. HB 1593 creates a personnel exchange program for civil service employees between the state, counties, and other certain organizations. So it would require compliance with Chapter 84. And I think it's something that we would support. However, I think we would sort of monitor, because I think there is sort of a challenge of, for example, a county employee sort of on loan to the state, our ability to enforce, et cetera. I think it's something we have to sort of keep close eye on the language to make sure that this is something that we're staying within our jurisdiction, not sort of trampling on, in this example, the Hawaii City Ethics Commission's jurisdiction. So I think, I think we would support and submit comments, trying to make sure that that jurisdiction's pretty clearly laid out.
So
you don't need any action from us?
So
support?
I think a motion to support and try to make sure the jurisdiction's clear.
Oh, okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll do the roll call vote. Vice Chair Fong.
Aye.
Commissioner Galti.
Hi.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Aye.
Commissioner Tobias. Commissioner Tobias has left the room.
No, she's just mute.
She's
Has her
on mute.
mic- Oh,
She's asking for a second. She's unmuting.
okay.
I'm going to unmute you if I can. Commissioner Tobias, I think we're having a challenge on meeting. Do you want to do a thumbs up or thumbs down? Because we can see you. We got a thumbs up.
Okay, and the
Great.
chair votes aye, so that's
Great.
that.
Great. So the last item, which I think we sort of already talked about, so I won't belabor, we had prepared a key, deserves the credit, for sort of creating an FAQ for legislators, essentially asking certain questions, like for example, the banana bread example, where we were clearly saying, you know, under these circumstances, yes, you can take it, and trying to provide that guidance. And so one of the issues came in is, you know, looking at the rules, it's pretty clear someone who's directly impacted, such as a lobbyist, wouldn't be able to give unless for certain key exceptions. And we are proposing essentially for everybody else, unless they were going to directly benefit from an official action of a legislator. So again, somebody who generally supports, let's say, puppies, you know, sort of a public general level interest wouldn't really be triggered. But somebody who's asking again for a spurb or something that's directly going to benefit them, there's going to be some gray area there. Like for example, if they're lobbying on a pothole right in front of their house, you know, is that direct benefit or not? The idea is we're trying to create some clarity and guidance. We're going to introduce that to you for the next meeting to look at and see if it's something you'd be willing to introduce. I'm only bringing it up now just to the extent that you have any feedback, and I think we've already sort of talked about this quite a bit. So only if you think it's something new or different, please feel free to chime in, or if a member of the public wanted to give input before we gave a draft.
Okay. You know, I can appreciate that some people legitimately can't sort out for themselves very well, you know, what's white, what's black, and how big is the gray in the middle. Because I like to think that most people can think that through for themselves and, you know, just make an informed decision. But I guess that's not true. So I guess we will always have to deal with finding that balance. How much gray can we have? And when do we have to be absolutely black and white?
Sometimes ulterior motives get in the way.
That is true. See, and I'm naive. I don't ever think about that sort of stuff.
Not the five of us, everybody else, but not the five of us.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you for the input. I think that covers the agenda, and appreciate all of your time and involvement on this. I know these aren't easy issues, and sorry it's such a multifaceted number of discussions that we had to have. But we'll certainly keep you posted on the testimonies we submitted.
Okay.
Might I suggest opening the floor to the public before we adjourn?
Yes. Does anybody from the public who's on this call have any comments? Anything they'd like to say?
Madam Chair, there's no one wants to make a comment. May I just say, first of all, I want to thank Rob and the staff.
Robert, there's a chat
sorry.
that I sent you a message from Sandy Ma. That she
Oh,
sent
okay,
earlier.
letter, go ahead.
Sure. So I'm going to repeat what Sandy said. She said, I have to leave soon. Just want to say that Common Cause Hawaii will be opposing HB 1871 and SB 2714. We have seen legislators and state employees being invited to 10 events, 2 benefits, and lobbyists pay to go and lobbying or other activities occurring. Just repeating her comments.
I'm sorry, which ones that she's going to post?
So this is going back to the gifts discussion. So she may have sent this earlier. She's just saying that Common Cause will be opposing those 2 bills.
1871 and 2714. Which ones?
Correct. The 2 gifts bills that we just agreed to table.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Super Bowl is in LA, so we'll be watching.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks to Rob and the staff for digesting this and giving us their recommendation. It's really helpful to me. I think I mentioned that to Robert, that you got to guide us a little bit, because that's, I hate to put it bluntly, that's what you guys get paid for, right? We know. And the last comment is that to my friends from Kauai, okay?
All 2 of them.
Wait a minute. whatever you do, you know, if you're gonna give a chicken, make sure if you're gonna give a chicken to a Chinese legislator or an employee, that may be more than $25 because a
may
black
be.
chicken is worth more than any other chicken. It's good luck.
Free range,
Chicken.
free range
could-
only.
Free range, right there. And it might be just chicken parts divided equally among the legislators.
But Chinese believe that black chickens, okay, are not dyed, but black chicken.
Yeah, yeah.
Good luck.
I know.
I didn't realize that. So anyway,
Thanks
just a word to the wise for you guys.
Thanks for raising that issue. Maybe staff could do some further analysis on that.
On that note, Madam Chair, move to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
I don't know that we need a vote on that, but Commissioners Gralty and Tobias, are you okay if we adjourn?
We are.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm always happy to adjourn. So thank you
you,
all, and we'll
Commissioners.
see you in a couple of
2
weeks.
weeks.
February
Thank
16th.
you.
Okay, thank you all.
Aloha.
Thank you.
You.
Aloha.
Happy Valentine's.
Bye-bye.